Hello, everybody. Pastor Rick here, Broadman Baptist Church, Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. It is the Broadman Word for January 18th, 2021. It is the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and what an important messenger of the gospel he was, and important to American history. His life cut too short by hate, and that was just such a pivotal moment in the civil rights era that I can only hope that God's good purposes were worked out in it somehow, and that things were really propelled forward. But we have much work left to do in this country. But today, we are going to talk about a related issue, and that is accepting one another. Our passage today is from Romans chapter 15. So Romans 15:7, it says, "Accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God." You see, what Paul is doing in writing to the church in Rome is trying to show the Romans and all the readers of his letter that God's acceptance was not just for Romans, not just for Jews, and not just for Gentiles. It was for Jews and Gentiles alike. He expands on that in Romans 8 through 12, chapter 15, 8 through 12. So what we are called then to do as his believers is to follow his acceptance of others. And so we have no place in our Christian walk for any sort of discord. In fact, the Bible commands us to, as much as possible, live in peace with others. And we need to accept others. There is no place for any prejudice in our witness, and not just racial prejudice. There is no room for prejudice of any kind in our walk. We are, in fact, called to walk with one mind and one voice. Unity of the church, unity of the gospel. So in this world we live in, though, we have no shortage of groups, no shortage of ways to be divided, no shortage of ways to have theologies that are different, goals that are different. And really, in America, we've always been sort of a melting pot of ideas. The founders of this nation didn't all agree on everything. In fact, even other than the agreement that they did not want to live under a despot king anymore, and they felt that there were certain unalienable rights given to every individual by the Creator, God, obviously, that was a unifying factor, and it trumped all of their other differences. It made all of their other differences secondary, and they argued with each other about these things, but they eventually settled their arguments, and they did so in ballot boxes and town halls and other civil means of resolution. But at the driving force of all that, though, the driving principle, the thing that compelled them to these civil means of discourse, was their love of Jesus Christ and the principle that everybody was created by God, that there were inalienable rights assigned to anybody simply by being a human. Just because you made it, that's it. You have these rights, and God gave them to you. So flash forward quite a few years, we now find ourselves needing to break down barriers, like Paul was preaching to break down barriers between Jews and Gentiles. We also need to reach across any of our own personal ideologies that don't line up with the biblical concept Paul's expressing here, and that is one of acceptance. We do not have to accept the behavior of everybody, but we do have to accept everybody. And we've now, in our media culture, reached a point where we are unfortunately assigning value to people based on their ideology and not the fact that they are a created human being. So what do we do then? Well, as I preached last Sunday from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, we are to not look at anyone with a worldly point of view anymore. Although we once looked at Christ that way, we do so no longer. That's from 2 Corinthians, and the passage I preached from was chapter 5, 14 through 21. So what that then leaves us with is an understanding that we must be different. We must approach things differently. We must view things differently. And as in Romans 15:7, that includes people who think and probably look much differently than we do, because the compelling force that drives us, the love of Christ, must also drive us to what Romans is talking about, acceptance. We don't have to condone their behavior or their lifestyles, but we do have to accept them as human beings, because in that acceptance is the reflection of the love of Jesus Christ. Jesus would accept them. He would rebuke their behavior if they were not like-minded, but then he would use love, he would use acceptance, and he would use truth to bring about the change. We are taught to love our enemies, and the reason is love is an intimidable force. It has a redemptive value in it that can make an enemy a friend. So even those who are currently enemies of the gospel, in seeing others with worldly eyes, don't have to stay that way. But there's only one thing that's going to make the change, and it's not any great oratory that you might be able to come up with. It's going to be the reflection of God's love from you to them, and that's going to include acceptance of them as somebody who first needs God's love, and secondly, somebody who deserves God's love every bit as much as you do. Difficult right now because of all the goings-ons and all the strife in the country. We see things and hear things, and they're disturbing to us, sometimes even shocking that these things are happening in America. But it doesn't matter. We still have to accept those individuals, and we have to do our job as Christians for those individuals, no matter what their theology or their ideology currently is. Because the plea that God makes to the world through you, to the lost and broken world, is one of love, and love can make you a change agent. And then God can come in and do the big God stuff and make a change in an individual's heart and mind. And then we've got another member of the kingdom, which is our goal always. So today and tomorrow and moving forward, I encourage you to heed the words of Romans 15:7 and accept one another, and do that as a praise to God, because you were once unsightly to him, but he accepted you, and now you're righteous before him. Do that for somebody else. Hey, I love you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.